Hello friends, my name is Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 2nd of September and we are going to cover 3 very important topics in news. These topics are not only important from the prelims point of view but also from the mains point of view. So we are going to tackle them in a holistic manner. So let's get started. The first topic which we are going to cover is simultaneous elections, or we can also call it as one nation, one election. Now, the government has called a parliamentary meeting, in September month only, in late September. And there are speculations that the government wants to do big ticket reforms. And one such big ticket reform is one nation, one election, or simultaneous elections. It simply means that elections to the parliament and elections to the state legislative assemblies will be held concurrently, means at one time. Means a voter who is going to vote will vote for his MP or her MP and simultaneously will vote for his or her MLA also. This is the concept of one nation, one election or simultaneous elections. Now this can be on the agenda, not so sure because everyone is tight-lipped that what is going to be the agenda. It can be anything. It can be, glorifying the success of Chandrayaan 3 or the successful culmination of the G20 summit here in India. Or it can be other, big ticket laws like Uniform Civil Code, or it can also be women reservation bill in Lok Sabha and the legislative assemblies. But heavy speculation is on this. So in today's session, we are going to cover this, and in the future sessions, I will also be taking up sessions on Uniform Civil Code as well as women reservation in Lok Sabha and the legislative assemblies. So this we are going to cover. Then next is rice export ban. The government of India levied export bans on the rice. Now few varieties of rice have been levied this export ban, that is non-basmati white rice. What is the rationale behind it? What is, I would say, the condition of India's rice exports? What are other countries doing with respect to rice exports who are rice growers? So we'll all see in this particular, I would say, topic. And the last topic which we're going to cover is military takeovers in Gabon. Gabon is a country in West Africa. And Gabon is the 6th such country in which a military coup is happening since 2020. If I have to say that in numbers, 8 coups in 6 countries have happened since 2020 in West Africa. Coincidentally, all of them are African colonies or ex-African colonies. So what are the reasons behind these coups which are happening? Which side is the public on? Is it on the military side or on the rulers, or I would say government officials? So we'll all cover in this through the maps also. We'll be looking into this topic. So let's get started with the first topic, that is simultaneous elections or one nation, one election. Now, government calls special session of parliament later this month, keeps all guessing. Now, since all are guessing, so anything can happen. The agenda speculations, what could be the agenda for calling this special session? Simultaneous elections for center and states, women reservation in Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies, or Uniform Civil Code. These big ticket laws can be passed, or any one of them can be put to vote. So it is happening September 18 to September 22. 5 days this session will go, means 5 sessions will be there. And anything can be picked up. Or even we can discuss, the success of Chandrayaan 3 or India's G20 positions. But according to me, 5 days is too much for this. Have these kind of sessions been called in the past? Yes, they've been called in the past also. Like for ruling out the GST, this type of session was called. Then to commemorate 125th birth anniversary of B.R. Ambedkar in 2015-16, this kind of session was called. And then we decided to have this Samvidhan Divas celebrating or celebrations on November 26th. So this is not a new thing that special sessions are being called for of the parliament. But this time, let's see what would be on the agenda. We'll definitely be covering what is happening or what will be happening over there in the parliament. But as of now, picking the first point from the speculations that what could happen, that is simultaneous elections for center and states. Now we should understand this particular topic from UPSC exam point of view. Now simultaneous elections in India, it is a much sought after reform in our country. India being the largest democracy of the world, there are elections, almost every year in our country. When I say that almost every year, I need to elaborate on it. Like every 5 years we have general elections. Then every 5 years we have state elections also. But all the state elections do not happen at one point of time. They happen in separate intervals. Like for example, this year we have, states like Rajasthan and other states like, some southern states heading into polls in this year's winter. Next year maybe some other states might be heading into elections or polls. After that, some other states. So almost every year there are elections in India. I'm not talking about local level elections. If I include that, so every year multiple elections will be happening in India. So we need to, I would say, streamline this, because when elections happen, a lot of resources are diverted towards conducting the elections. It is not, I would say, a cheap affair. It is an expensive affair. We need to mobilize the security forces. We need to mobilize funds for that. We need to divert the attention of local administration towards elections. They will be compromising on their work. Now, when the model code of conduct is there, the government cannot roll out any policy frameworks. So there is kind of a policy paralysis. So the big short leaders, when there are elections in the states, they are busy campaigning, and they may be holding positions like the prime ministership or the ministers. So their work is compromised. So there are many, I would say, reasons for simultaneous elections to happen in India. It is one big ticket political reform which is on the cards. But having said that, there are various challenges also in this. It is not easy. You'll have to first, annul the assembly of all the states, and then re-elections will be conducted in each and every state. Just imagine a state where the government has just been formed. For example, Himachal Pradesh. Last year only the government was formed. So this can lead to a lot of havoc as well. But yes, this havoc will be one-time havoc. And things are expected to be streamlined. So when we talk about simultaneous elections, we want to streamline elections for center and states and conduct them at the same time. The issue of holding simultaneous parliamentary and assembly elections has been referred to the Law Commission in July 2022. This was referred in order to develop a workable roadmap and framework. Now, is this something which is new, which is going to happen? Simultaneous elections or one nation, one elections? The answer is no. You might be surprised that, when we started as a democracy in 1950, till 1967, elections were, simultaneous elections. We'll come to this, but yes, how elections happen in India, first we need to see this. In India, elections to state assemblies and Lok Sabha are currently held separately. That is, whenever incumbent government's 5-year term expires or the government is dissolved for various reasons, elections happen. The concept of one nation, one election envisions a system in which all state and Lok Sabha elections must be held simultaneously. This will entail restructuring of the Indian election cycle so that elections to the states and the center coincide, and this will also have to amend the constitution. This would imply that voters will vote for members of Lok Sabha and state assemblies on the same day at the same time. Now, historical aspect of simultaneous elections, as I told you that till 1967, elections happening in India were simultaneous elections. However, after dissolution of some legislative assemblies in 1968 and 1969, as well as Lok Sabha in December 1970, elections to the state assemblies and parliament have been held separately because that coherence was broken. So, after 1967, it was happening separately. The elections were being held separately. The idea of returning to simultaneous elections was raised in the Election Commission's annual report in 1983. Election Commission actually is responsible for conducting elections, and it is a lot of administrative hassle for Election Commission right now. So, in 1983's annual report, Election Commission recommended that there should be simultaneous elections in the country. This has also been mentioned in Law Commission's report in 1999. The most recent push for one nation, one election came ahead of the 2014 Lok Sabha elections in the manifesto of one of the contesting parties, that is BJP. And that is why there are heavy speculations that BJP this time is going to come up with this reform before the elections. BJP, the present government, is known for delivering on its promises. And that is why these kind of speculations are there. The Prime Minister himself in 2016 also mooted this idea again. The Niti Aayog prepared a working paper on the subject in 2017. The Law Commission stated in its 2018 working paper again that at least 5 constitutional recommendations or 5 constitutional amendments would be required to make simultaneous elections a reality in India again. So, these kind of hassles will be there, like 5 constitutional amendments will be there. But yes, this one-time hassle will resolve many issues. But are we really prepared for it? Let's see how things unfold. Let's see how the government plans to bring it in. Now, benefits of simultaneous elections. The massive expenditure that is currently incurred for the conduct of elections will reduce. Simultaneous poll will reduce enormous costs involved in separate elections. First is this. Next is the policy paralysis that happens during the model code of conduct. Model code of conduct is, implemented as soon as the dates of the elections are announced by Election Commission of India, and during that tenure, the existing government cannot roll out any new policies for the people. So there is a kind of policy paralysis which is there. So this kind of policy paralysis happens frequently because, either the state is under state elections at times or under, general elections. So in 5 years time, 2 times the minimum this policy paralysis happens in every state. So this is something which is detrimental, and this will be less. Impact on delivery of essential services will be less because, the essential services deliveries are impacted during election time, election period. So this will definitely be less. Burden of crucial manpower that is deployed during election time will reduce. Crucial manpower is basically from the Central Armed Police Forces, which are responsible for conducting the elections, like CRPF deployment is there. Then deployment of various school teachers and all, or government officials which carry out the implementation of elections in a free and fair manner. They are also deployed. So they'll have to be deployed time and again if simultaneous elections do not happen. But if simultaneous elections happen, only one time deployment will be there in 5 years. So that is it. This will be reduced. The system will help ruling parties focus on governance instead of being constantly in election mode. Yes, this is very true that the ruling party, let's suppose ruling party in the center, if there are elections every year in every state, one or the other state of the country, their focus is diverted and they are less focused on their work. So this will also help them to, work with more focus and divert their focus once in 5 years. The challenges in this aspect. First is the constitutional challenges. As I told you that minimum 5 amendments have to be done, and constitutional amendments are not easy. They can be subject to judicial review as well. Okay. So, and they are actually more prone to judicial review because upholding the constitution is one of the objectives of the Supreme Court. So, these are the constitutional challenges. Second is it may affect judgment of voters, because see, technically speaking, the voters, they vote with different mindset for the general elections and a different mindset for state elections. It is generally also observed that the voter turnout is more in state elections as compared to general elections. In the state elections, the local issues are of prominence. In the general elections, local issues are of less prominence. So it might, leave the voter confused, or it might alter the judgment of the voter. So this is one such challenge or drawback. Then reduced accountability of the government. Now here reduced accountability of the government is basically elections will happen once in 5 years, whether state or center. But in the present scenario, what is happening? General elections, after 2 years state elections. So if after in general elections, let's suppose party X candidate is chosen and that party X candidate is not performing well, the people can vote against that party or in favor of the other party after 2 years. So in this case, accountability increases in the present scenario what is happening, okay, where simultaneous elections are not there. But if simultaneous elections happen, then reduced accountability of the government will be there, because once in 5 years they'll have to be accountable to the people, or they'll have to face the people. And last is logistical challenges. Now we have security forces which are deployed during the election time. But these security forces, let's suppose this year there are elections in 2 states, they'll be deployed there. Next year there are elections in 3 states, they will be deployed there. But simultaneous elections or one nation, one election will entail or will call for elections simultaneously in 28 states and 8 union territories. How will we deal with it? Is Election Commission of India equipped with so many EVMs? Are there so many, security personnels which will safely and securely conduct these elections? Chalo, in every state there are school teachers or local government employees which will definitely be there on the election booths. But the central government machinery, that is the Election Commission of India, as well as the security forces which gets deployed during the election time, are they enough so that they can conduct the elections simultaneously in one time across the entire country? That has to be looked into. And these kind of logistical challenges, we have to be well prepared for it. If we are not well prepared for it, then the situations can turn chaotic. The elections can then not be free and fair also. There are these chances also. So we should be prepared for that. It is a noble step, no doubt about this fact. The positives attached with this are immense, and as a logical Indian, I would suggest that simultaneous elections should be there, as it happens in other countries as well, like USA and all. But we should be prepared, we should be well prepared for facing and overcoming these challenges. If we are able to, then why not promote one nation, one elections? So this is it from this particular topic. Now, second topic is rice export ban. In a move to check domestic rice prices and ensure domestic food security, the union government has imposed certain restrictions on rice export. Now, 2 things are here. First is checking domestic prices, and second is ensure domestic food security, means availability of rice is ample. By levying export bans, availability of rice will be ample, because we will not be exporting rice, that rice will be available for our domestic consumption. But check domestic rise in prices. How this will happen, we'll see. But before that, let us look into, is rice production less this season? Is this the reason why the government has levied export bans? We are knowing that it is the driest August which we have faced till now. We've discussed this in earlier sessions. But does it have an impact on rice productivity? So let's look into this. According to the Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, during the Rabi season 2022-23, Rabi season 2022-23 basically started somewhere in October 22 and it was continuing till March 23. Now rice is cultivated almost all times of the year now. Rice production was 13.8% less. Now during this period, rice production was less. And 158.95 lakh tons was produced as compared to 184.71 lakh tons during Rabi of the previous year, that is 2021-22. So there was less production in 22-23 Rabi of rice. So this stands true. Now the Kharif sowing data. Kharif April 2023 till now shows that rice is sown on 384.05 lakh hectares this year as on August 25 compared with 367.83 lakh hectares during the same period last year. So the net sown area for Kharif rice has increased from 367.83 to 384.05. But how much is the productivity? It is not known because rice is not yet cultivated. It is being cultivated, and by September end probably we'll come to know the exact data that how much rice production was there during this Kharif season. Trade and rice millers say that new season crop arrivals will start after the first week of September and that El Nino effects are likely to impact arrivals to some extent. El Nino, basically we'll be covering it in the future videos. But what is El Nino? El Nino is basically a weather phenomenon due to which less rainfall is there in India. You just have to understand it in this way as of now. It is a global weather phenomenon we'll be discussing later. But yes, so rice millers are saying that productivity is going to be less. We are expecting it less. And the government is also expecting it less. So in the Rabi season, productivity dropped down by 13.8%. In the Kharif season also, rice productivity, despite the fact that net sown area has increased, is expected to fall down. And that is why these rice export bans are there. Now India's rice export. India is the largest rice exporter globally with a 45% share in the world rice market. Overall rice exports in April-May 2023, that is this year, were 21.1% higher compared with the same period last financial year. Now, in this period, the Rabi productivity was down by 18.1%, but the exports of rice grew up by 21.1%. This is there. In May 2023 alone, export of basmati rice was 10.86% higher than its exports in May 2022. Basmati rice, exports increased. Now, when we talk about the non-basmati rice, it has been on the rise also for the last 3 years, and the export of basmati rice in 22-23 was higher than the previous year. So this clearly shows that the export of basmati rice is increasing. This data, which is shared by the government, says that till August 17 this year, total rice exports were 15% more at 7.3 million tons as against 6.3 million tons during the corresponding period last year. So we were exporting more rice this year. Now, according to this year's economic survey, last year total agricultural exports from India were $50 billion, which was the highest ever in the history of India. This year we were expecting them to cross $50 billion. The trend is quite visible in one of the major commodities of agricultural exports from India, that is rice. But the present move by the government has put a stop on rice exports. Obviously, the government is considering national interest first. If rice exports are there increasing rampantly, then there can be a possibility that availability of rice in the Indian market for the Indian consumers will be less. And then the thing which happened with tomatoes can also happen with rice. The price of rice will spiral up. Now the global outlook on rice, basically other rice growers like Thailand, it is expecting nearly 25% lower production in 23-24. Myanmar has stopped raw rice exports and it is said to be low in Iraq and Iran as well. Because all these countries in this region, they are under the El Nino impact. El Nino impact is a global weather phenomenon, I'm repeating, due to which less rainfall happens in the Indian subcontinent and the areas nearby. So this is there. Will there be price volatility? Means by doing this, whether the prices of rice will go extremely down or extremely up. No, the government has taken measures for that as well to maintain stability of prices largely. However, the step taken by the government of India will slightly increase the prices of rice because the government has increased the minimum support price, MSP. Minimum support price is that predetermined price on which the government is procuring rice or any food grains from the farmers. So by increasing MSP, assurance has been given to the farmers that we will be procuring rice from you at a higher price. The prices of rice will not fall in India. The farmers were scared that the government is levying export bans. Due to these export bans, there will be a lot of supply of rice in the domestic market, which will lead to fall of the prices of rice and it will definitely negatively impact us. This was the viewpoint of the farmers. But what the government has done, it has increased the MSP. By increasing the MSP for rice, the procurement prices were increased and now the rice millers are procuring rice at a price higher than the MSP. Means the farmers are ensured of their increased income from selling rice. Hence prices will not decline for the farmers. This is clear. The restrictions on exports will ensure that there is no steep climb in prices in the market because supply will be ample. If the government would not have levied export bans, then there could be a possibility that supply will be less and prices could spirally go up. But with this levying of export bans, the supply of rice will be ample in the domestic market, which will definitely keep the prices largely stable. But due to this initial, rise in MSP and the rice millers are also procuring at a price which is slightly higher than MSP, definitely this increase in prices will be passed on to the end consumer, that is we the people. So for domestic consumers, there is a slight increase in rice price at present. In the long run, availability is secured and prices are not expected to spiral. Now just imagine a situation if the government would have levied export bans and not increased the MSP. Then what would have happened? Supply of rice would have increased substantially, which definitely would lower down the prices of rice and a negative impact on the farmers' income, which the government did not want. So what the government did? Export bans, MSP rise. The common people will have or will face a little bit of price rise, but simultaneously they will also ensure stable supply of rice to them. So this was the overall story over here in export bans of rice. So the steps taken are to check domestic rice prices and ensure domestic food security. The union government has prohibited the export of white non-basmati rice, levied a 20% export duty on parboiled rice till October 15. So export duty increased, export bans levied. What happens to basmati rice? The government has also permitted the export of basmati rice for contracts with value of $1,200 a ton for above. Now if you are selling basmati rice at this price or above, then you are allowed to export. If not, if you are selling it below this price, then you are not allowed to export. The export of broken rice has been prohibited since last September. So broken rice is called as tukda. That length of that rice grain is very small. So last September we banned it, again due to lack of productivity. However, it is allowed on the basis of permission granted by the government. If government grants permission for non-basmati rice, for basmati rice less than $1,200 a ton, you are allowed to export to other countries to meet their food security needs based on the request of their government. Now their government, the countries where we were exporting rice, if there is lack of rice availability, then their government will request our government, "Bhai, India, please send us." Now the government will assess the situation. If there is ample supply over here, then the government will allow the rice exporters to export rice to those countries under special circumstances. And the last piece of news, that is military takeover in Gabon. Gabon is a country in West Africa, and as I told you that this is the 8th such coup or military takeover in West Africa. 6 countries in West Africa have experienced military takeovers since 2020. So this was the 8th former French colony in the region to see a coup since 2020. Now the unfolding, the coup was announced on national TV after Ali Bongo, who won the elections to become the president for the 3rd time. Now you might be seeing Ali Bongo becoming the president for the 3rd time, and he was deposed by the military of Gabon. He appealed to the people that make some noise against the military. But people, they acted in contradiction. They were celebrating the coup. They were with the military. Now this, might point towards, there might be some authoritarian rule by this person. Actually, since the last 55 years, the family of Ali Bongo was ruling Gabon. And they were, allegations on corruptions, sham elections, failure to spend Gabon's oil and minerals revenue on the poorer people of Gabon by Ali Bongo and family. And that is why the people were in support of the military takeover in Gabon. Now, the public reactions to the coups in almost all the countries. Let's first look into what countries are there. Chad, you are seeing, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso is this country. Then Guinea over here. Then Gabon, this. The red ones, are experiencing coup. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in these 6 countries, the map of Africa you can see, there have been 8 coups since the last 3 years, that is 2020. Now, there have been common grievances against their leaders of the people who were leading them. Corruption charges, dynasticism, as I told you that Ali Bongo's family was ruling for the last 55 years. So there was complacency, there was a lot of corruption, people were not getting the benefits of the resources of that country, mineral resources largely. Then causing up to the Western countries, election frauds by them. So all these factors have led to, upheavals in countries in West Africa. Okay. Now, let us see the country-wise report card. Now, when I first talk about Gabon, it is here. So, we've largely discussed President Ali Bongo was deposed just soon after the election results were announced. Present situation is Gen Brice Oligui Nguema has been named transitional leader. He is obviously the general of the military, so military takeover is there. Then when I talk about Niger, this country, Presidential Guard detained President Mohamed Bazoum inside his palace, and head of the Presidential Guard, they took over. The present situation is negotiations between junta, this is the military junta which took over, and the regional bloc ECOWAS. ECOWAS is basically an economic and political union of the West African states. So economic union of West African states is there. So there is negotiations between ECOWAS and the military junta which has taken over in Niger. But presently the Niger is under the control of the military junta over there only. Next is Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is this country. Last January, the army ousted President Roche Kabore and Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Damuba took over. But as internal security worsened, there was another coup in September. So this particular country witnessed two coups. Captain Ibrahim Traore has been in power since September 2022. Again under military only, but this country witnessed two coups. Next is Guinea. Guinea is over here. Special Forces Commander Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya ousted President Alpha Conde after the latter changed the constitution. Now the president in Guinea changed the constitution. According to the constitution of Guinea, any person could become the president only twice. Similarly, just like the situation in USA. But the existing president changed the constitution and got himself elected for a third term. So Doumbouya promised democratic elections within 3 years. He took over when this elections which were forfeited by him. The present situation is transition to democracy was to begin in January 2023, but critics say that the process is very slow. Then when I talk about Chad, April 2021, the coup happened. President Idris Deby was killed while visiting his troops in Chad's northern area. That northern area was under war already. So his son, actually named as General Muhammad Idris Deby, was named as interim leader. The parliament was dissolved. The present situation is Deby is in power, but transitional government's term will end this year. So let's see what happens next. Next is Mali, August 2020 and May 2021. Mali is over here. This is Mali. President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita was ousted by colonels led by Assimi Goita in August 2020. Now, under pressure from other West African neighbors, the military ceded power again to the interim civilian government. But, in February 2022, again there was a coup and, the power was taken again back by the military leaders. So, a lot of political instability is there in the West African countries. The reason is that people who were in the ruling positions, they became complacent. A lot of corruption was there. A lot of, I would say, nepotism was there. A lot of, I would say, neglect of the people's rights were there, which definitely led the military to take over, and military also garnered public's support for it. Now this is something which can happen to a country where you do not have a strong political class, where you do not have transparent systems. These kind of political instabilities definitely hamper the well-being of the people, the progress of the people. So this is it from today's session. I will be meeting you with some more important topics, and those topics will be important for prelims as well as mains. Some follow-up news as well on the topics which we have already covered. Till then, keep reading, keep writing and keep revising. Jai Hind. We'll see you on the other side tomorrow. That is it.